Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I want to share with you some orchid blooms, and I've got a combination of new blooms and first blooms that I wanted to share with you. The first blooms I'm always excited about, and well, we'll get to those in a little bit. I want to first show you just a new bloom on a plant that I shared with you pretty recently, and this is Cornelia calipana. And there's only one bloom on this plant, but this is the last bloom that I'm going to get, probably of maybe 15 blooms that came out on this plant. So as you can tell, this is a pretty big plant, and it was loaded, and I'm counting, as far as old bloom spikes go, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blooms. So this is the 7th right here, and there's only a single bloom on this bloom spike, nothing coming out. But this is a plant that's been really prolific for me. It's got a nice fragrance. It starts out, when it first blooms, it's a little light in color, and then it develops a little bit of purple or lavender color. I like this plant because it is really so prolific. So I'm using it in some of my crosses, and so that's what that's what I wanted to share with this with you. And just so you can see the crosses, so those are located right here. So I've got a couple of capsules that are forming on this from one of the previous crosses. I don't like putting, there's 2 capsules already on this plant. I don't like putting too many on a single plant because it kind of drains the plant a little bit. But again, this plant is so big, I don't think it's going to negatively impact anything, and it really is doing so well that I think it'll continue to do well. The capsules on here are pretty small, but hopefully they'll get bigger and they'll look pretty nice. So a repeat bloomer here, and I am not going to be crossing this flower because, like I said, there's already a couple of capsules on there. All right, so I want to show you also a new bloom that a first time bloom that I've showed you previously, and that is this one right here. And this is a Fastball Gold dash Secret Love, and those are the 2 parents that are from this plant. I shared this with you pretty recently, and this has some slight spotting on it. I like it. I wasn't really incredibly fond of it. It's got a nice flower. I brought this flower into my local Orchid Society meeting, and it gets judged, and it's a membership judging, and then afterwards there's somebody who is a little bit more of an authority who goes through and judges these plants as well. So this one, I mean, it's a nice flower. It's not great, it's first bloom, so there's only 3, but it's still pretty nice. I should say I've had this plant for a little over 6 months. So it's still fragrant, so the fragrance is nice. It's been in bloom for about 3 weeks, and I brought this thing into my meeting. I think it was late last week. I brought it into the meeting, and what happened is it did not win the popular vote, but look what it did win. So this is a flower quality award, and this is a bigger, frillier ribbon. So I'm pretty happy with this. But the quality, I guess, of the blooms were pretty nice. So it won this award. So I'm not going to cross onto this because it's the first bloom on this plant. But I'm going to collect the pollen and probably use it. Again, it has the spotting, it has a nice flower quality, and the fragrance I just love. I didn't bring too many plants into my local orchid, my affiliated AOS chapter, because I didn't have that many that were blooming. I was also in a little bit of a rush to get to the meeting. And but what I should have brought in, and I didn't, I had a bunch of oncidiums blooming, and I thought, nah, they're not special enough to bring in, so I didn't bring them in. But the other thing that happened, this always happens, but I had this guy, and I didn't bring this guy in because the blooms were not fully open. So this is a first bloom for me. So this is the first bloom. The plant, I'm going to turn this thing around and hopefully not get caught up and snag anything, but this is just coming out of its pot here. The roots look good. It's a really vigorous plant. This is just a classical large Cattleya, and it's an old variety. So this is first bloom on Pamela Hetherington. And I bought this plant. I got about 2.5 years ago. I got this plant, and I got it because it is a parent of one of the plants that I really like. It doesn't look that nice now. So it's a parent, believe it or not, of this sad orchid right here. And this is Mishima Victory, that also has a huge flower on it normally. This plant got really big, and I split it. And now I split it into a bunch of plants, and now it's recovering. And I got this is just the one that was convenient to bring over and show you. But this plant is the Pamela Hetherington is just doing really well. Nice fragrance. It's in a small pot that isn't appropriate for it, but it did take 2.5 years to bloom, and it seems to be just a slow growing plant. I'm not sure I want to use it for. It's a big Cattleya. Nothing really exceptional about it. It's got a nice fragrance, big bloom. And I'm a little angry with the plant because it bloomed the day after my meeting. So I couldn't bring it in because the flower was still closed. It looked a lot like, the day of my meeting, it looked a lot like this. So this is pastoral. It's pastoral. The cultivar is Innocence. And this is another plant that I've had for a little while here. Big white classical Cattleya bloom on this, but it didn't open when I wanted it to be open. There were not that many big Cattleyas that were brought in, and so it was disappointing that when I came home the day of the meeting in order to prep and bring my orchids in, that this one looked like this, with that the blooms just not open. And then the following day, of course, it just was right after the meeting. You know, I came out and it was like, nah, look what I look like now. And so this is what Pamela Hetherington looked like the day after my meeting. So I couldn't use it. It's still okay. I'm not sure if I would have bought the plant. You know, it looks a lot like the progeny plant. The progeny plant's a little nicer, a little more vigorous. This one's a little bit slower growing. And it's a nice looking, it's a nice big Cattleya, but I'm not really sure that I'm going to be using this for my crosses. It's going to have to, probably after the flowerings, then I'm probably going to have to repot this orchid and put it into more of an appropriate pot. All right, so again, first bloom on Pamela Hetherington. You know, huge flowers, looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it, but I want something that's going to be a little special. And this is just it's an old variety too. And again, it's the parent of Mishima Victory that is also an old variety. So this one, Pamela Hetherington's even older. Okay, so what I want to do today for the rest of my video is I want to get behind the camera, and it's an exciting time because there are so many of my orchids are in spike. Not too many of them are open, but I've got a lot of stuff coming, and it's really exciting for me to be there. So let me get behind the camera and we'll take just a really short look at some of the orchids that I have that are either flowering or soon to flower. Okay, and let's get started right here. So I don't have too many phals, and this is not one of mine. This is my wife's phal, and we got this thing. This is her driftwood tree right here that she had to have from one of my orchid growing colleagues that I visited. And you know, I brought it here, put it in the ground, started taking care of it, and because of the time of year it is, I don't know if you can tell, but there's two large spikes coming out right there. And if you take a look down here, you can see maybe some of the roots growing out down here, but then there's a couple of additional flower spikes. So I think this one will have four flower spikes. It's the biggest orchid the biggest phal that's on this tree, and I think it'll be loaded in a little while. But if you take a look at the other orchids, so here's another phal right here, and I don't know if you can see, there's a flower spike there. If we go around to the one in the back here, you can see the flower spike that's coming out there, and then the one in the front right here, you can see the spike coming out of that as well. So these are all going to be flowering at the same time. What the strings, the copper line that she has on it, these are her, you know, twinkle lights, so solar powered, so they come on at night. So this is her part of the garden. And the phals will probably be, I haven't seen them bloom yet because this is our first year having them, but I think they'll probably, it'll probably be really nice. Okay, and just so you know, so this is part of my orchid nursery right here, and then the shelf below, and I'm going to load this guy up a lot. There's a vanilla orchid right there that's growing up through it that came from the shelf below. But these are just some of my seedlings. I do have an orchid back here that a dendrobium that I got from Thailand that I haven't seen bloom, and I'm excited. It's tiny. You're not even going to be able to see it. But I do want to show you some of these things back here. So this is clear stars, and that's an old bloom that kind of looks bad because, as you can tell, the tag right there, I pollinated this. But there's a couple of new blooms coming out right there. And every time this thing puts out a new pseudobulb, there's blooms that are buried in there. So it's a real prolific bloomer. And then if I move just a little bit away from it over here, this is another one of my favorites. And I'm going to have to show you. So the blooms coming out on that. And the same thing here, if I can find them, is down in there. There's a couple of more blooms coming out. So this is the same situation every time this plant puts out a new pseudobulb, you have a couple of blooms. And this is a big red flared Cattleyas, and this is in one of my forklift pots, and it seems to be doing pretty well here. As you just go real close to it up on this tree, you can see the roots that are grabbing onto the tree. This Vanda just finished, but here's a Rhynchostylis that is it's not quite in peak bloom yet, but it looks pretty good. Got a lot of flowers. White, not my favorite color, but really nice fragrance, and it bloomed last year, and I'm happy that it bloomed this year. So I'm figuring out how to grow these guys, and that is just to strap them onto the tree and just kind of take care of them, but largely ignore them. So this is going to be loaded. The plant itself looks pretty good, and again, it's putting out these. If we slip around the back of this, it's putting out just lots of pretty vigorous roots that go all the way down, and then all the way up this tree. Okay, let's just move back onto the fence. This is an Oncidium spacillatum, and this only has the one tall bloom spike that's growing out of the top right there. So I was kind of expecting there to be more, but there aren't, and that's okay. This is a Myrmecophila that I got a couple of years ago, and it's just grown tremendously and hasn't flowered yet. And right next to it is another, I thought it's a Myrmecophila, but it's not. I'll get the name of it and put it on the screen, but this has not bloomed for me yet, and it's gotten kind of big, and I was surprised because I took a good look at this a couple of weeks ago, and those are two new bloom spikes. And then if we take a look down, I think it's down there, there's another bloom spike, and the rest of them you can't see. So when there's this little, right in there is another one, and maybe down, I don't know, I can't see it, hard to tell on the viewfinder. But I counted, there are 6 bloom spikes. So the first bloom on this plant, there's going to be 6 spikes. I think the flowers are small, but you know, I'm happy to get anything here, and this is going to be loaded. Okay, I have to go around the palm trees in order to take a look at some of the other plants here. And then again, this is more of my nursery space here. I have room for some. I'm going to bring, if you've been following me, you know I'm going to bring a bunch home. And but these things look pretty good. This is a place that they're doing well, my seedlings that they like to grow. But moving on and taking a look at some of my other orchids that are in bloom, that are about to really explode for me. This is Momolani Rainbow, and there are 2 flowers there. There are 2 flowers there, and I just saw this morning. If you look down in that sheath, there's another 2 flowers. So this guy is, I've always had good luck with Momolani Rainbow. It grows really well for me. It's like a weed, and lots of flowers on it that are coming out. Okay, let's move on just a little bit more. And over here, and some of these you're not going to be able to see much. You're just going to have to trust me. So this is this right back here is the Cattleya Ludemaniana, and it's got a couple of sheaths. There's one there, and there's one there, and you feel the sheaths, and there's blooms in there. And then moving around just a little bit, this is, again, I can't see anything, but this is Mahina Yahira Mishima. Right here, and this is this also, you can't tell, but in those sheaths right there and there, blooms coming out of there. This is the home. This is the orchid that I showed you previously. So this is Pastoral Innocence, and it's doing it. So I showed it to you previously, so it'll probably be open tomorrow, and I'll show you that flower, what it looks like when it's open. And then going right here, this is another, I have yet another plant of Momolani Rainbow that's also got some bloom spikes coming out on it. Okay. Oh, and I got one more thing I wanted to show you, just so you can see. And I've showed you this many times. It's one that it's always blooming. And my dens just, you know, it's too bad I don't like them more. This one is nice because I got fragrance. This one is at least fragrant. So this is Wu Lang. And what I did for one of the first times ever is I remade a cross. So I crossed Wu Lang with another dendrobium that's actually growing on the date palm tree in front of my house to make a dendrobium that I've named Woohoo. And it's not sad woohoo, but it's woohoo. And I remade this cross because the progeny that I've got from this cross are so vigorous and so big that I had to redo it. So I crossed a couple of flowers on this, I took the pollen from Wu Lang and crossed it onto my other dendrobium, and it's still a little early, but I think it's going to be a successful cross. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed my video showing you some of the blooms and some of the up and coming blooms. If you like my video and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you could click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.